we're probably gonna have to go all in because the rule is the law, and the rule is if a counselor, board member is attending remotely, we have to afford the same access to the public.
Okay.
If a council is not allowed to attend remotely, then you do not have to provide remote access to your
Okay.
residents. So since we are providing remote access, so what we're working on is this may heavily become that we're gonna have a cost increase as a town, because what's going on is we got all these staffers coming in, but now we're back to committees, we're probably gonna hire an intern/student is the model.
Okay, so do what?
To do these, cause otherwise we don't have staff, used to be we had an employee on staff and then we kind of separated it out to Pete and a little bit to Mitch.
Okay.
Mitch is participating in so many meetings, Pete quit.
Yep.
So we're trying to replace Pete, we're hopeful to get that person at doing this, but this is a lot of hours, so when you're looking at the amount of time a person commits with council meetings, planning boards. We need to supplement this somehow, because we would never be able to recruit a person that says, hey. 4 to 8 nights a week, you have to work till the same hours as the council. We need to have an intern or student or some sort of part-time person that we can just pay, $18 to $20 an hour, maybe even $22 an hour, just come in here, run what Mitch is running right now.
To set this up and then upload it.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thought, so we're probably quickly gonna take the NISA report and graduate all the way to, we're just gonna set them all up this way. And we will record them, I guess.
Yeah.
At least until Sarah's back, we have to do it this way.
Yeah. And so.
Or I can just not come to these committee meetings if that becomes important, so keep me posted. I don't wanna cause trouble.
I mean, I think developing one process for everything is a lot simpler than having kind of these piecemeal approaches, so.
Yeah.
Sarah, you can put that on your agenda for NISA or whatever we're calling it now.
NISA, NECAP.
Okay, so once this gets uploaded, we are complying with all freedom of information.
good.
Okay, so we're good. All right, perfect.
And I don't think we got anybody online and no one's here, or they'd be joining us in here.
All right, perfect. So can
Sure.
the public see us right now, or what's their access to this?
It's not live. They have to log in.
They have to
Okay.
log in.
So
Yep.
it's,
Okay, so much
it's
like it
not
would for
live,
us.
it's just a login and they would be in, well, it'd be
Okay.
live if they log in, but it's not like on Facebook or anything like that.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, so
we're
it's the
not
same
streaming.
process that we would use for a council meeting.
Yeah.
But they can participate. Okay, all right, perfect. All right, well then, so for purposes of this meeting, this is the Finance and Operations Committee meeting, Monday, the 21st at 4 o'clock. So my thought process on this initial meeting was first to review the charge, but since Sarah and I helped draft it and.
Leo Kenny is not in attendance.
Leo Kenny's not in attendance, yes.
There's your roll call.
There you go, perfect. Oh yeah, do we need to do a roll call at each one?
Just announce him.
Just announce.
I would announce who's not here.
Okay, all right, yeah, so Leo's not here from his staff. We have Zach, Clint, and Mitch. So the first order that I was going to suggest we do is review the committee chart, but since Sarah and I put it together, I don't think we need to review that. Leo would be the only one that I would.
Jacob, I wouldn't mind that we just look at it before we start for a second. For me, I'm just gonna at least do that. I don't know that anyone
Okay.
else wants to, but
I can grab, you want coffee?
it was a fair amount of time ago we did it, so.
I just did the paperwork on it today and think I sent it to.
Okay, yeah, let me pull it up quick, Sarah.
Yep. I think on the financial side, I've got it in front. There's sort of 3 things delineated. Comprehensive review of financial activities, including monthly reports. That would be number
Yep.
1, monthly financial reports. Involvement in long-range financial planning would be 2. And 3, oversight of the budget process, which I remember we talked about, the meeting
Yeah.
structure and schedule, but also what documents would be in the binder, having some discussions of that,
Yep.
and make a recommendation to the full council. Okay, So those are the three, and then on the operational, it specifies reviewing and providing advice to the town manager for high-level operation matters. Operations that have significant impacts on the budget or on services to the community. Okay,
Okay,
got it.
mine's still pulling up, so I believe and trust everything you just said, and I agree with it, so.
Okay, got it.
So perfect, so in going with that. My thought process on how these would run is we'd first do a review of the monthly financials or. Quarterly financials, open to suggestions on that.
Monthly for sure, because we're gonna bring to you guys.
I think Leo's gonna say he wants monthly.
And that's fine, nope, that's perfect.
I mean, you're always gonna be a month behind.
Yep.
We're reporting on the month that's just completed, and because of this meeting, I think we agreed we do the second meeting of the month.
Yep.
Which is good, cause we'll be close at times, but we should be close to have, by the second meeting of the month, we
Yep.
should have. The prior month, so right now you should have been looking at September done as we sit here today.
Yep.
So you'd have September's here in front of you, and then you'd have all the warrants for payroll.
Yep.
And for expenditures in front of you to sign off, and you'd all be able to review, but we're taking that out of the chairperson's hands
Yeah.
and bringing it into the finance committee's hands.
Yep.
And then if there's anything you want brought to the finance committee, this is a nice check for your 7,500 rule.
Yeah, that's exactly,
So
yes,
if you
that's-
see an expense of 7,500, you say,
Yeah.
then why didn't you bring that to me? It's our health insurance cost, we pay
Exactly,
that
it
every
doesn't matter.
month, and you want me to bring that on the council agenda every month? We don't have enough time.
Yeah, no, exactly, okay.
Yeah.
So from a financial or from a financial reporting perspective, I don't want to add to kind of what you're already doing. I took a look at kind of what the metrics are that MMA recommends, and also what we as a bank look at when we are evaluating towns. And some of the big ticket kind of ratios items is our leverage ratio, so. Another one, and this doesn't have to be done on a monthly basis, but taxpayer concentration, I know it would be helpful.
Mhm.
To at least, biannually review that, cause if I recall from our budget conversation last year, we're. Pretty concentrated with a few taxpayers.
You wanna see like the top 10, is that what you
I
mean?
think, yeah, something to that extent, I mean, I'm just thinking from a risk standpoint. Knowing who our top taxpayers are, and then, because if one of those pulls out, then, it could have a substantial impact on the budget, so just being aware of that.
Yep.
And then do you do any sort of cash flow calculation, cash flow ratio?
It's on our goals.
Okay, alright. Again, I don't wanna, add things to what you don't already have as part of your standard, but.
Yeah, we don't do a balance sheet, that's one of the ones that's always tough to get people
You
to.
don't do a balance sheet?
Well, we got traditional balance sheet and governmental accounting's not, it doesn't, you can do a statement of financial position.
Yep,
Do things like that, we're working on that, but a true balance sheet, our accounting software doesn't even create one.
really?
We have a trial balance, we have some other stuff like that, but that's one of the ones I was debating with him, and it's always hard to explain to. Zach can jump in here, but it's always I always had the hardest time explaining to business people. A traditional balance sheet, if we were in QuickBooks, yes, but we're into municipal-based accounting and they just don't have. A report that really represents it cleanly, but again, assets, liabilities.
Yeah,
We can probably, we're working to see if we can come up with a report that's kind of a hybrid that runs it after we've reconciled the month.
but our audits have a
Trial balance.
traditional,
Trial balance, and then they create a balance sheet.
they create a balance sheet from, okay.
Yeah.
So then you all are in municipal finance, what are. So, primarily from a balance sheet, I would look at leverage, so what, level of debt we have in comparison to our assets.
Yeah.
What our liquidity is.
Yeah.
So I guess municipal finance, you all tell us what should we be looking, what should we be reviewing, what should we be concerned? What should we, be concerned with?
Cash flow.
Cash flow, yep,
Without question, that's the number one, you always wanna look, you
Yep.
have to look at our expenses and revenues for the month.
yep, and that's your statement of activities, yeah.
Statement of activities. And I don't know, What do you, I mean, what do you think of bringing the trial balance in here? That's a lot of work to do it on a monthly basis, it is done.
Yeah, and don't, I mean, yeah.
It does
don't-
generate a very lengthy report.
Yeah.
When we do run a trial balance, like 60-70 pages long, I don't know if that's something you wanna jump into every month.
I mean, I wouldn't think so, but I mean, like, you know, the bonding agencies, what they would be looking at. I guess our leverage ratio is what I'm really getting.
Bonding agencies are gonna look at our audits, that's, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
that's
all they look
really,
at.
they're gonna go at all our audits. And they
Okay,
might come in and do a little bit of fuse, but
so is there any way that we can? Well, okay, so let's think about this. Would our leverage substantially change
we can get a report somehow.
over the course of the year? And I'm thinking, yes, it would go down once we start to receive tax payments and then it would slowly start to increase, but we wouldn't be taking on new debt, any substantial level of new debt. We wouldn't be selling any substantial assets, so.
Yep. I mean, we can get I think we got a statement of assets that we'll run, let's play with some reports to see. what-
Yeah,
Okay.
play with some true
We just don't,
reports.
it doesn't have a traditional balance sheet,
And maybe that's not what's done in municipal finance and that's fine.
but let's see what we can come up with, I mean, I know we can run a report that will show it'll show your debt to income and it'll show us our assets and liabilities. But you're just not gonna get that tying balance sheet moment,
Okay.
everything reconciled, your bank accounts reconciled.
Okay.
Let's see what we can come up with,
And then the
you don't
statement of
wanna,
activities would be, not balanced the budget, but we'd be able to see
yep,
year to date against budget. I'm
Yep,
assuming
that's what you
part of the
guys will
report.
probably, you probably wanna do a budget to actual summary,
Yeah.
that's probably
Yeah.
better than a
Yeah.
balance sheet.
That's actually something Trio can do.
Yeah, perfect. Sarah,
Yeah, I
are there
think
any
that-
other big ticket items?
I already have a
I've been
separate
talking
bill
a
for it,
lot.
So,
Oh, cool.
I think what they were just saying, what Clint was just saying is what Leo's been talking about and asking for. So that discussion that just happened there with Zach and Clint, I think is gonna be
Okay,
important probably.
We've been working on this has been on our goals.
Yeah, okay.
And I mean, it's on our goals to get you guys meeting, this is a flaw, I'm surprised it's never showed up that the finance committee doesn't meet.
well, we're doing it now.
The last one, we wondered, do you want something from this to be on the agendas every month? That the council sees it and approves your report?
I
In
could
some
go
places-
either way.
If we can find a simple one pager, like that does a summary of a balance sheet like
Yeah.
activity, it would be nice for the full council to have that presented so that they know. And then they know you're doing everything else, but then the council sees something that knows that our cash balance was, knows what our activities were for the month.
Yeah, is there a way to just do a summary statement, because then council sees it, it's transparent to the public. But I don't want to rehash our entire discussion here at a council meeting, that's why we tried to create the system we've got. So is there kind of a summary statement of condition that can be reviewed at?
so
Let's
I
talk
do
to us about
have
trios first. Oh, go ahead.
some reports from kind of back when the finance committee was a committee and met more often.
You
What I
do.
can do is I can get those updated and bring them to the next meeting, we can kind of take a look at them and see what you guys like, what you don't like.
Yeah, would you
just-
mind sending me even the old ones? I can
Yep.
go off the old ones and take a look at what we have in the past generated or what we can easily generate, and then yeah, next month we can review the updated versions of that and
Yep.
determine what we need to see, what we don't need to see, et cetera.
Yeah, I figure if nothing else, it gives us a starting point.
No, I think that's a great idea, okay. Sarah, any more thoughts on financial review, things
No,
like
I
that?
think that sounds good. I mean, if we're just gonna go back and recap, there was some stuff sort of tossed around at the beginning that we're not necessarily gonna do, right? So if we're recapping here, what we are planning to do at this point,
I
does
think
someone
we're
wanna
gonna
read?
start with the old.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Zach is going to actually send it out to the whole committee.
Mhm.
What, even the old reports,
Yep.
let us take a look at them and then you can update those for the next meeting if that's, unless there's something, we decide to say, we don't need to see this, or, could this report be expanded? So I think let's
And
do
we'll play
that.
with it.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll put it back in.
Okay, my sound cut off at one point.
Okay,
my sound cut off at one point, so I wasn't entirely clear. The packet that is the previous packet, is that what the Finance and Operations Committee would see? Or is that the summary page that the whole council would see? Or is that both? My sound cut off at some point, so I wasn't entirely clear.
it would be the package that they've used for finance committee in the past.
Okay, what Finance Committee saw, and then
They-
from that, we're gonna look at what might be a one-page summary that went back to council every month, is that correct?
There may or may not be one in there, we'll see what's there, and I'm gonna
Okay.
work with Zach to see what we
Great.
can come up with. So if there's something new, we'll identify it, this, here's what they used to get, here's a
Yep.
staff recommendation of maybe a way to do it,
Yeah,
more
And the one thing-
tailored.
But, and you also did say that the year-to-date financials on a monthly basis would be something that would be in that packet, because I know Leo's gonna ask for it, he's been asking for it for a long time. That sounds like you're pretty sure it's there?
if
Budget,
it's not, it has to be.
well,
Yeah.
budget to actual year to date.
Yes.
Correct.
Budget to actual, yep, great, that's
No, I
perfect,
agree,
thanks.
that's a good one, budget to.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, that's perfect, thank you.
And probably some point, reserves will come in here from time to time too.
Well, and that's where, again, seeing what's easily producible, I do
Yeah.
think it's important to look at our liquidity and.
Yep.
Both on a, cash balance side, but also a reserve restricted cash side.
Yep.
So not being entirely familiar with municipal finance, I don't know what to ask for, so.
Yeah. Yep, and there's a lot, that's the problem, we
Yeah.
have so many
There's a lot
different,
of options.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the tricky part.
Yeah.
There's no uniform.
That sounds great,
Okay,
that
Yeah.
sounds great, and thanks for emailing it out ahead, because that'll probably make us more efficient in our
And that
next
would be
meeting
the-
talking about it.
19th, right?
this would be, yes, next month's meeting,
11/19,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
but Zach,
So we'll
would
get
you
it-
mind emailing around the old stuff
Mhm.
for that, just so we can get familiar with the types of reports we will see?
Yep, I'll get that out to you guys probably by the end of the week if that works.
Perfect,
Thank you.
awesome, alright,
So before you jump on this one, since you're on that same item, I'm gonna kind of just take a quick segue and say. The auditors have met with us, and I think what we'd like to do is have the audit. Kind of the conversation was we could Zoom them in here for this.
Yeah.
The audit obviously has to go to the council for adoption, but I think from a presentation standpoint, it should be presented to the finance committee. And maybe go to the council with a
recommendation,
correct, because
I would agree.
otherwise you'd probably be half hour to an hour in a council meeting going over your audit, and is that best use of time? Well,
My-
15 minutes for sure. for
Well,
presentation.
so my knee-jerk reaction is to agree with that because, I've been part of those audit presentations at nonprofit boards and they can get lengthy.
Yeah.
So I believe it should be presented here with us then giving a recommendation to committee. Sarah, be my transparency conscience here, is that acceptable?
I think it could be, but I think we would need to make that proposal back to the council and the council would have to decide. I don't think that we have the authority to decide that. So, I mean, I think what we can do is we can say, we've talked with, Zach and with Clint, and here's the suggestion for how this might work. And, does council feel comfortable with that or not?
Are you okay, assuming council goes with that approach, are you okay with that piece? Again, you're kind of my transparency backstop here.
I don't know because I'm not sure. Zach can clarify for me, but Zach, when you did who gives the audit presentation? You gave that to council last year, or who gave that to council last year?
Actually, I gave it to council last year.
Right.
It's getting rather lengthy. The auditors are willing to zoom in and give the presentation. Which with my current skill level might be better, because I feel like they can tackle the questions about some of the things a lot better than I can explain them.
They didn't write it.
Yeah.
Difference.
Jacob, I think this is really just a council discussion because I'm not sure there's a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. I just think that it's important that, council has one of their, our central
I don't have a
council.
deadline, a date for that just yet.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you guys. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just asked Clint if he could stick that on the agenda.
I think it's really important because obviously fiscal management is one of the key roles for council. And that's for all of council, right? Not for the finance committee. So if the rest of council felt like they wouldn't be informed enough to be able to be making decisions they need to make without having that full audit presented to them, then, then that's important. That
So
they
just
speak
to-
up and say that.
So to draw that together, on the, I think I'll do November 4th, we'll put on your committee report to the council that the process for an audit would be to have the auditors present here, and then the full audit be put on the agenda for approval by the full council with a recommendation of some sort from this committee. Or some other version if they wanna change that, if the council wants it to go to them. So the choice is all would be to them, or it would use the committee. Or do you just wanna leave it open-ended and just say discussion on audit process? and see
Yeah,
what
I would
they
just say discussion on audit process and then. Well,
I think it's important to be clear to council what the past process has been that they've seen. So the past process was it went to the full council, right? The whole entire audit presentation. Zach did it last year. It took a long time, right, Zach? Wasn't it like almost a full hour? It was long, right?
It was a little more than an hour, yeah.
And so, it's a fairly lengthy audit presentation that either goes to the full council or it comes to the committee. And then the committee says, we've heard the full presentation and we recommend, what at that point are we recommending to council, Clint? Just accepting the audit? Do we have anything else we do at that point?
You would get the full copy of the whole audit, you'd have a full Q&A of anything you wanted to additionally add. I think you would get not only a short report from Zach, something in that 5-10 minute version. I think that Jacob, you as the chair would then follow up and say, we did have key questions. These are the highlights I'd like to share out with you from that conversation. There might even be, you have the full management letter, you have the full audit, you have all those financial statements. So I don't know, there's no way to.
it's not like we can tell, it's not like we can go back to the auditors as the council and say,
Change
let's
this.
change this.
Right.
The audit is simply a reporting of.
I don't wanna complicate this, but not complicate it, but remember when you went to the whole council, that was the committee, cause everyone was on it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. That's
You were
not
going to the
complicated.
finance committee, but it was, everybody was on the finance committee. Everybody was on the, we didn't divvy that up.
Typically, this would
Thanks.
go to if you got a finance committee, typically it would go to a finance
Yeah.
committee. The
Perfect.
biggest thing that you're gonna point out every year, which I will even help with Zach, is it a qualified or
I
unqualified
was gonna
opinion?
say, yeah.
Is it modified? Were there any findings?
Mhm.
Which,
So I
I'm not
think-
sure, and then you talk a little bit about notes, anything in the notes
Yeah.
that they would recommend.
Mhm.
So there's almost like a little bit of a plan that comes out of it, but if there's a finding, that's something that we have to write a corrective action
Yeah,
plan
you've gotta
for.
come up with a
And then you would
response
wanna
to it.
present the corrective action
Yeah.
plan as part of this, saying this is what we're doing, and the council would be approving our plan, so.
Got
So
it.
I think you gotta kinda see how this audit plays out, but I think from a process.
Yeah, I think what we should do is the next council meeting.
Yeah.
Clint, could you put as a discussion item, wherever you wanna put it is fine by me. I'm gonna think about this some more, but I'm going to recommend that we do it at the finance committee level, not the council level, but it'll be the will of the
That is
council.
what your charge says, I think too, we just read it, audit is part of your charge as well, and budget, right?
It doesn't, yeah,
It's not actually mentioned in the charge,
Oh,
I
is
don't
it?
think. That's why I'm suggesting that it needs to go back to the full council, just because it isn't, it says a comprehensive review of financial activities, including examination of monthly financial reports, involvement in long-range financial planning, and the oversight of the budget process. It doesn't specifically say
audit.
anything about the audit. So
Good.
that's why I originally said, I just think we need to go back to council and be clear. And Jacob, this makes perfect sense. Mitch's comment was really helpful. It has always been going to the finance committee. It's just that the finance committee was everybody for a while. I think we need to just take it back to council and clarify that, since it wasn't specifically mentioned in the charge, to be sure everybody's on board with that plan.
alright,
Sounds
Alright.
good.
go fight win, okay, so from a financial perspective, audit perspective. Next, or you're gonna email reports, and then next month we will start with. The beginning of the meeting, reviewing all of the financial reports, questions, etc. Okay, good. Alright, so then, I envision us then getting into items assigned for committee. So, spending limits. I would like to be able to take a recommendation to council as soon as we can, because that seems like an efficiency. Assuming the discussion goes the way I hope it will, that seems like if we can change that, it will increase the efficiencies. My question is, from a research standpoint, where does it say, is it policy, is it ordinance, where does it say, where does that $7,500 or where does that limit come into place?
I believe it's part of our internal controls.
Okay, so internal controls. And is that on the Google Drive?
I don't know if it's on the council Google Drive.
Okay,
I put it in the Google Drive in the finance.
or
committee.
yeah. Because I'd like to review that. Do you know off the top of your head just a paraphrase of what it says?
Not off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, when I read it, it was kind of scary because it's the typical, any purchase over $7,500 should be approved by the council. You know, and I'm like, well, what does approved mean? That's what got me into the approved.
Yeah,
I mean, if we've got that, and that's where I'm coming, if it's an itemized, usually there's language about non-recurring, non-contractual, et cetera, you know, so like Trio, we have a maintenance agreement that's contractual and over 7,500, we don't bring that in. Health insurance, that's a required service to the staff that we have by policy that we give them their health insurance, so we're not bringing you in the health insurance bill. Now that you're seeing the warrants in the finance committee, you see them all.
yep,
So I've been kind of leaning more to your spending threshold should be a number. So like whenever it's over this, no matter what, you bring it in, but in addition, if something comes in over budget, you know, so the bid goes out and you put 50,000. And the budget comes back at $50,001,
that has to
it's
go to
$1
council.
over. I gotta go back to the council and say, we're $1 over and this is how we're addressing it. That way you're approving that we took $1 out of maintenance,
Yeah,
you know, to pay for a capital purchase or whatever that would be. Or if it's something that was completely unbudgeted, so Lori Bouchard, I wanted to hire her, it was an unbudgeted item, there was money in the budget to pay for it, but her services were not included and it exceeded 7,500. Now, whether it should be 7,500 or not,
yeah,
you guys talked that one out, but I brought it into you and said, hey, this is what I need, and I think, you know, this is where your language is too, and because the finance committee meets every month, you should put some language in the internal controls that those are reviewed for adherence to the policy every month.
yeah.
If there's anything you think that should have come, you pull it at that meeting and flag it for a future agenda item and we bring it in. The hard part will be is sometimes we'll have bought things.
And that's, yeah, I don't wanna put a policy that's too restrictive that doesn't allow you to do your job. I mean, kind of my way of thinking is the distinctions of operating costs versus capital costs.
Yep.
I mean, operating costs in my mind, as long as they're within the budget thresholds, those don't need to come to council because they've already been budgeted, they've already been approved. I mean, payroll every 2 weeks we don't approve
Every
that, or every week, we don't approve that.
So,
Is there a kind of, Clint, is there a way that this might be done where even if something is over budget on a certain line, as long as within that
departments on
department's
budget,
budget, they have the ability to pay for it and stay within their overall department budget? I mean, unless it was over by a certain percent on a line,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I don't
well,
know,
we can't go
that's
to
what I'm
another
wondering
department,
about.
right? That is council activity.
Yep.
Department to
Sorry.
department, we have to bring to you, so if I wanted to use police money to pay for a fire thing, we
Right.
can't just do it.
Right,
Which is fine,
But
I agree
within-
with that.
within a-
Using
but
Sarah's
within a-
example, like if for some reason we budgeted, I don't know, whatever, X number of dollars for the pool, but this year we didn't do the pool, so we
Yep.
needed those monies within parks.
Yep.
To still do it, is that what you're getting at, Sarah?
yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, I mean, I don't think that should have no limit, but you know, to have something for the manager that just said, if a line within a department is over budget by no more than whatever percent we put, like 10%, and the manager can move lines within the department to account for that, it doesn't need to come back to us, but over a certain percent it should, right? I mean, if a line is like, you know,
You need to see
I
the
don't know
internal
the
control
amounts, but
accuracy. You is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing right now, more than
I
anything,
think
you gotta
just to,
start
you,
with that. Yep.
So
yeah, and my
can-
suggestion, Clint, my other thing apart, sorry, just apart from also the, like, I agree, we need to see the internal controls, but I would also like to see the language that staff would like added that you've already mentioned about making sure, you know, expenses are not coming to us unless they're non-recurring and non-contractual and all that
Yeah.
language. So I would like to see not just the existing internal controls language, but also some of that language that staff know they already would like to see changed. Is that possible?
if,
Okay.
can we do this? So Zach's gonna send around internal controls. Clint, can you send me thoughts on what Sarah just said, what you would like to see? And then am I allowed to put together my bullet points and then circulate them to the committee prior to the next meeting, or is that, are we violating open meeting laws? Because there's three of us.
No, as long as you have every expectation, we're gonna share it, you're just not discussing it or coming to an answer, you're just sharing information.
Okay, so
So
I
that
can't
information
say,
would
I
be-
can't say, here are my thoughts, what do you think, Sarah?
That's like I emailed you guys this weekend, 3 letters.
Yes,
I didn't violate any rules by sending it to council, furthermore, it's in the agenda, it will go in an agenda, it will be made public in the minutes, so they're
Okay.
there, so. I think you're okay in that regard.
so as long as Sarah and Leo aren't responding back to me.
Yeah,
then-
and not, yeah,
Okay.
you don't wanna get that
Right.
dialogue going, say, hey, change this paragraph, change that
Okay.
paragraph, this is just, you
That
know.
was-
to
Yeah,
help us
just
out.
make it clear, Jacob, that just make it clear that you're sending it to us for information that we'll talk
Yeah.
about at the meeting and that we're not to respond back to you just because Leo's not at this meeting. So just be
Send
clear in
back
your
to me.
email. Right.
Yeah, no, I'll
Right.
do the BCC thing. I was
Yep.
really hoping that we'd be able to hash this out via email and have something to,
You can hash it out
Recommend.
via email,
just one-on-one though.
no, with Zach and I. We like
Yeah.
this, we come back, I respond back saying, it was suggested we tighten language here, take a look at paragraph 3. This is where one of the comments came in, and now we're sharing back to you. It's okay to do it, it's just,
Okay.
it's gotta be with one, it's gotta be with the staff doing your FOIA,
Okay.
you know, your protections.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so as long as you are included in those.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, just say reply back to Zach, reply back to Clint, we can keep
Okay.
editing.
perfect. I think that's, I would like that, cause I would like to have some semblance of agreement before we come to the next finance committee meeting,
Yeah.
so we don't spend the entire time hashing it. Okay,
I
perfect.
do wanna, you probably should
Yep, I
stop,
know.
you should, 4:45, we should probably end.
4:45?
Well, just, you got 5 o'clock, but we got people coming in, I gotta get over there.
Kill me. Okay, no, that's perfect. Sarah, did you have anything else on spending thresholds?
No, I think if we start by seeing what the internal controls
Yep.
manual says and the language staff would like to see changed already that they know, and other parts just to flag if, you know, things to be concerned about. I think that's a good place to start. As far as how high that amount should be, I guess I have no sense on that. So, I mean, I'm also curious for some guidance on staff about, you know, what's typical in other municipalities or what might be a
I intend
figure.
to research others, so I'll do that.
Yeah, I think some research on that would be helpful because I have no idea if 50,000 is common or what's a common figure. I really don't know. So, thank you.
Perfect. Not to rush, but okay, so moving on to the old fire station disposition. So at the original council meeting where it was brought up, I would have to check my, oh yeah. Some recommendations were to talk to Brian Frederick and the Historical Society. Would it be appropriate to ask if they could join us at the next finance committee meeting? To,
So who's this again?
so at the council meeting, when we discussed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Talk to who?
Brian
No, you go ahead.
Frederickson, Brian Frederick from the Boy Scouts, I'm assuming he's
Yeah.
the Cub Scout leader. And then somebody from the Historical Society. I don't mind
So-
reaching out to them, but would it be appropriate for them to come to the committee to talk about Because what I would like to do is go to council, this is finance committee recommends exploring this further or something to that extent, allowing you to enter it. Yes, Sarah.
So Jacob, the only thing I'm thinking is, I feel like what's needed a bit on that is more of a sense about what questions we're asking them. So, I mean, I understood that what we were mostly charged with, I thought, was to take a look into what kind of memorandum of understanding would exist. Is that not correct, between the Boy Scouts and the town? And the Boy Scouts and the gear library? Most especially, it seemed like people had questions about what would happen if the Boy Scouts weren't maintaining the building. And, you know, there came concern that it was gonna fall down. So it's not that I think inviting them is a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, but I think we ought to have our ducks in a row a little bit first about what it is we're trying to get answered or hashed out.
Okay.
And Clint, I'm more wondering if you might be able to, you know, I guess not at this meeting, but at our next one, walk us through what some of the parameters in a memorandum of understanding between the town and the Boy Scouts might or could look like. Again, not knowing as much about them at all as you do, I'm not even sure what
So
sort
we're
of
not
options we
deeding- are
have.
deeding it to them or not?
My understanding was we were being charged with taking a look at what kind of memorandum of understanding we would create with them if we were deeding it to them. But
Yeah,
again,
I
I
mean,
should go back and listen if that wasn't your understanding. That was my understanding of what we were charged with, but
I would agree, and then we'd be deeding that to them with certain deed restrictions though.
Correct, like, they can't sell it,
Exactly.
if they ever wanna get rid of it, we get the
Yeah.
right of first refusal.
Exactly.
Those were the sort of things that were in the attorneys and my recommendations of council saying that you should consider and
Yeah,
tell me what you want. And then language that says that there would be an MOU between them and the gear library. The trick I had with that one, you gotta be careful, cause the gear library is kind of they're not an official organization in the sense, it's not like you're asking the Boy Scouts to partner with Penguins Cap or something like that, you're asking them to partner with a group of citizens that are doing this. If the citizens disappear, we don't wanna put language that says they have to
Yeah.
be partners with a citizen group, they just gotta offer it. So that's why I was leaning more, why don't we just say that it's up to them how they do it, we hope they would
Mhm.
work with the local organizations, but. You know, have a gear library available, if at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is something that you can require in the deed. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then the maintenance, that's a good one, that one didn't come up. And I didn't know if you wanted something like that, I mean, they are gonna be required to maintenance. They do own it, so you're gonna be in a weird situation, you gotta be careful about, if we deed it to them, we're gonna have a hard time paying to fix it.
exactly,
can't
but
give
we,
them money.
yeah, no, it doesn't make,
but we need to stipulate that it is maintained
Mhm.
to a certain level, so it's how to.
We're gonna have to tell them they gotta get it insured. So
Yeah,
that would be one of the things that they get inspections every year to maintain their insurance. We probably should meet with them and see if they're prepared for all the costs that will come with owning that building. Maintenance, mowing.
so how did this come about?
When we met over there with them, they think they can fundraise better if they own it.
But like that, did they approach us, did we approach them?
I've been here 3 months.
I think they've approached the town about it over the years multiple times, and Zach might know more history, or Mitch. My understanding was they've approached the town multiple times saying that they would like to own the building.
I met
But
with them, they mentioned it, they said we would accept
So
it.
I will say this real quick. There was a verbal somewhere along the line, 100-year lease with them, but part of that 100-year lease was they were supposed to take care of the building. Didn't happen. When we went to them to talk about closing the building down, they had no money to fix the building.
Yeah, that's my
When we
concern.
talked about a bunch of things, they weren't at that time really interested in doing it, but as this has moved on, they've changed kind of and moved more into being interested in owning the building. I think they've always been interested in owning it, but I don't know that they had any mechanism to own it based on what needed to be done. So
So it sounds like to me, and correct me here, is that before we go too far down the road with drafting an MOU is to determine how serious they actually are. I mean, I'm on the board of the Cotton Area Council, which is, the council, and scouting in general, I don't know about this group, but scouting in general is not doing well, it's not in a good financial place, so would the next step be to have a conversation? To figure out if they're serious and that they've actually put in concrete plans to maintain it and actually. To maintain it, to ensure it, I mean, I don't know, chicken or an egg, what do you think, Sarah?
Well, I can meet with them for you guys, you don't have to do that, I can kind of sit back and if they're available, they could come to the 19th if you wanted them.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking is, but then Sarah talked about we should get our ducks in a row, which I agree with.
No, I
as
think
well,
that's
so,
fine.
yeah.
It sounds like we're sort of hashing out what the questions are right now. My point was just for us to know what our questions were if they're coming. It sounds like the questions are primarily that we have, and if I'm understanding correctly, the MOU has really nothing to do with our relationship with them. That's a separate issue about their relationship, if there is one with the Gear Library and an MOU. With us, it's just the terms of the deed is what you're saying, Clint.
Yeah,
And what happens if they don't maintain the building, right? Does it revert back to us at some point if it doesn't pass the inspection? Do we want that to happen? Because then we inherit a building in worse shape than what it is now if they don't do the work. So I'm not sure that I mean, I don't know. I think those are the questions we need to talk about. Like, hopefully they have a plan and we think they've got a good plan to maintain it and pay for that. The questions I heard from council were, but what happens if they don't? Then, is the building just theirs and it falls down? Or, do we take it back over at some state or not? I don't know. Those are the questions I heard at the
and you
council
might
because
find they
they're
don't
not.
wanna own it, they might say, you know what, keep the insurance, but maybe this is a situation, say, if the council would. Commit to X dollars that we can challenge our fellow Boy Scouts to do this. You gotta meet with them, cause
Okay.
it
I
was a
think we
quick
need to
meeting.
talk to them more than what we already know unless we have answers to these questions.
Alright, can you ask them if they're able to join us via Zoom or in person next month?
11/19.
Yep.
Right, 11/18.
And Clint, your understanding is that they feel like they're better able to fundraise if they own it. Is that correct?
The meeting I had there, that was kind of what was said to me, and I'm like, okay, I can.
Okay.
Everybody says they can fundraise until they
Got
try. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Anything else for the good of the order then? We've done.
Jacob, I just
charge, we've
wondered,
done, yep, go ahead, Sarah.
what other things were on our list. So you're right, we did the charge, we looked at the spending approval limit and the old firehouse, which were on our list. Maybe next meeting, if we could also make some time to just talk about other, like, I heard there was the email that came from Dan that came to the whole finance committee, right?
About capital budgets, yeah.
There was some end of year capital project report or something that had been, council was maybe going to get, but that happened, I think, in the transition between our interim
happened
town
later.
manager leaving
No,
and
I
Clint
do
coming
remember that.
on and.
Yeah.
Oh, you were there? Okay,
Yeah, no, I remember the conversation and it was brought
Yeah.
back up again when I got here that you've been asking for it, and I said, well, you've got your required budgetary items, and I said, it's been more of a holistic look, and I've been working on that for a part of the budget.
okay. I just know the last conversation, I went back and looked at it when Dan sent the link, and we did ask, I think, for a year-end capital projects report about which projects had come
Yes,
in
yes.
like under budget and
Okay,
had
you're talking about
allowed
something
money.
else. Yeah, I do
Right,
remember
what
that
had
one.
come in under budget, which was allowing a certain amount of money to be left in capital projects to be rolled forward, and maybe it's a question for Zach, because I think, if I'm remembering right, was it you, Zach, who said that was something you could create, or I don't know. I just think we need to cycle back.
But that
Okay.
comes here first, right?
Yes.
I would think it should come to the committee first, and I just want us to be clear that, council asked for it, so we should maybe do it and then report back to them that, here's the page, we looked at it, I don't know, but I'm thinking that's something we should get on our list. And the rest of the stuff I think is more about budgeting and, stuff in the budget binders, that's not, necessarily so urgent as these other items until we get a few months down the line. But I just wondered if there was anything else anyone was aware of that might be outstanding for this committee.
We have some things on the fun side. For
Yeah.
this
Funda or funda?
Fun.
Alright,
Okay,
guys.
we like that.
Net energy billing?
Yeah. What do you guys know about net energy building? Electricity?
Net energy building or
Building.
billing?
Yeah, for
Building.
utilities, electricity versus.
Nothing.
Nice.
Hey, do you know you got an agreement for solar power for the town and was approved by the council, but it's.
But we haven't actually done anything.
No, we're doing it. It's a long-term agreement. You've never had an update on its performance.
Oh,
And maybe we thought we'd bring that into this as an operations/finance report. Something that we get asked to buy solar, buy
Yeah.
hydro, buy.
yeah.
We finally found all the reports. He's got some good information on it. There's Leo.
No.
So can we bring that here at some
Yeah,
point?
no, I think so.
Okay,
For purposes of the minutes,
Yep.
Leo Kenny just showed up at 4:49 as we are wrapping up.
right on time.
Perfect.
Early for the next meeting, late for this one.
That's. No, perfect.
Maybe whether November, December, we'll kind of see. You got a few other things. in there,
Yeah,
so,
yep, no, I think that's great.
Okay,
Great,
that was all that we
thanks.
thought. And
Okay.
things like that as we go forward from time to time, we'll bring here, but
Okay.
it's just big contracts. We do have a contract that's gonna be brought to the council, and that's where it's supposed to go first. Cause it's an opportunity for new contract. If they wanna refer it to committee, it may come to you, but that's regarding a HVAC maintenance agreement. Yeah, and that's all coming together, and that'll probably be, I gotta talk to leadership, but we'll see what committee meeting, what council meeting that'll be on, and you may get that referred here, but
Okay.
we'll see. That's it.
Sounds good, awesome,
Great.
thank you
One day
too.
from the top for me.
Nope. I will, I'll give you the update. Yeah, you can listen to the video. Alright, perfect. For those listening, 4:50, we are adjourning and yeah.